Hello, everybody. Welcome to Research Skills Refresh. My name is Alyssa Voda. I'm the Instruction Outreach Librarian here at UM Flint. On today's agenda, we are going to be talking about topic selection, and we're going to go through a few different steps that really help you kind of develop your topic. And then I will always say that the library has a research process guide that has a lot more information on this and kind of has a good study, has a lot more tips and other things to kind of look at. So initially, when you all start coming up with a topic, there's a couple of questions that I always ask my students to think about, especially if they're kind of struggling with something. So do you have a strong opinion about something that's currently going on in the world? Is there something that you have a personal connection to that you want to know more about or you want to inform others of? Or is there something that's really piqued your interest in your class or in your field that you want to focus on? And the reason I ask these questions, just again at the very, very start of anything, is because students and actually just researchers in general are going to be more engaged with the project and more interest if they are interested in it, right? If it piques their interest, if it's something that they are passionate about, right? Now, if you are completely at a loss here, we do have our research topic ideas page on the Thompson Library homepage. Let me grab, we'll get to this in a second. And that's listed under research help here. And then if you go to research topics right at the front, and then we have, again, some initial kind of tips on this picking a topic page, but then over on the side, you have all of these other different tabs that are actually going to kind of give you a list of topics that might be good for a paper, depending on what your subject is. But once you kind of have at least a basic topic, right? Like you saw something on a website or you have an idea, one way to start at least thinking about this is to use a tool called mind mapping. And this is, again, a really quick visual way to develop your topic. And things to include in this are what you already know about your topic, things that you kind of need to find out, other things that are foundational are about your topic to give it context. And this is a working document. This is something that you are going to be able to add and subtract to especially as you're going through these initial stages of developing your topic. And it will also help you kind of develop some search terms for your paper and project a little bit later on. Now, how do you make a mind map? You could use a pen and paper. We have actually on our guide here, one second, under picking a topic, we have a little form that you can download as just a diagram here. Hold on a second, it'll come up in a second. But literally, it's just a circle in the middle that you write in your topic with some lines coming off of it, right? That's all that this is. And you'll actually see that on our YouTube channel, and it's embedded in a couple other places. We do have a video where you can see me do this as well. There are a couple of other different digital options that you can use for a mind map. My current favorite is Jamboard, but I am sad to say that Google Jamboard, this is part of the Google Drive suite, is going away later this year. So I need to find another one. But basically, again, this is a way that you can kind of visually, put your topic in the center. And this was for a couple of years ago. I was helping Honors 156 with a project, and we were thinking about how vampires are kind of seen in various media as well as in history. And so put together as a class, we kind of put together these areas of vampires in literature, some examples of it here, some time periods, how they were in film, the history of it, if there's any kind of historical connection to it, and then other kind of specific types of vampire, or are there any types or tropes or traits that they have, right? So this is something that we were talking about just then. And it's a little bit more fun. There are some other ones that we've done. So for example, I do this one a lot as an example, screen addiction. And with Jamboard, you're able to kind of move things around and say, I do want to add in sleep here. And, blue eye effects on light and that kind of thing. So you can add this. It's a really easy program to use. However, as I said, it is getting retired towards the end of 2024. So there are a few other ones that I'm going to be looking into, but even something as simple as like Canva or Google Slides, and again, just a pen and paper, you're going to be able to use this kind of mind mapping technique to develop your topic. Okay. So the other thing that you can do, especially if you're really, really struggling with um, producing a topic, if you're not finding anything online, you just kind of need someone to give you that prompt. You can always come talk to a librarian, but generative AI is another thing that I am finding very useful for topic kind of uh, brainstorming. I will say that if you just ask for a list of topics, it brings back very generic ideas because generative AI is kind of based on the probability of words coming after each other, right? Especially with word-based things like ChatGPT. Um, and so it's kind of going over a huge amount of data. And so the things that are coming up most frequently and most popularly are things that it's going to come back. So for example, I just did I actually asked ChatGPT 3.5. So this is the most recent free edition of ChatGPT. I asked, what are some good topics for a persuasive essay for my college intro writing class, right? And it comes up with a bunch, right? Climate change, universal health care, social media, school uniforms, gun control, importance of arts education, right? These are some, like legalization of marijuana, right? These are some things that a lot of professors read about, a lot of students want to write about. So some professors actually say, no, you can't write about like the legalization of marijuana, or no, I don't want you to talk about, I've read too many papers on like gun control or something like that, right? So the prompting in here is going to really help. You're going to have to be more specific with your prompts. So for example, with this one, I said, oh, social media, that's something that I'm interested in, right? And I asked it, can you give me more detail in exploring those positive and negative effects? Like I copied this from that prompt, and asked, what are some of the pros and cons? And then it gave me this. But again, it's still really, really general. There's nothing here to kind of back up what it's saying. I'm going to have to double check and fact check this a lot. But again, it's kind of this, I guess, um, kind of survey of human knowledge, and it kind of brings back what a quote unquote consensus, or what a lot of people, or what a lot of things on the internet have published about this, right? So it's again really generic here. And so if you're trying to come up with a really like innovative topic, Gen AI is not necessarily going to work. But again, you could continue to kind of ask it for some questions and try to get a little bit more specific as you go on. Okay. Um, Now, as I said, especially with you're going with the Gen AI or you're looking for some of these other things, you need to find some background information about your topic, at least to give yourself some context. Now, if you already know a lot about the topic, if this is something that you're passionate about, you may not have to read as much, right? You may not have to go back in and look as much. But this is where you are going to find kind of some general information or an overview of things. So going into what are called tertiary sources like encyclopedias or handbooks, even Wikipedia might not be a bad idea at this point, just to give yourself a reminder. If for your higher level kind of research, so if you're looking into your graduate programs, your like capstone, finding literature reviews and systematic reviews are types of journal articles that will give you like an overview of the research that's going on in your topic, right? And it will kind of give you an idea of what is going on with regard to a particular topic. Um, and again, this is if you ask like Gen AI for something to give you some like an overview of everything, it's going to give again really general information. It sometimes will fabricate sources or mislead you about what a source says. So, for example, again, I asked it to kind of give me an overview of where is it? Summarize, what privacy concerns are with teenagers' use of social media. So I started a new prompt to kind of get a bit of fresh start here. And it's giving me a lot of the same things that I saw earlier. And then I asked it to give me some sources a little bit later on here. And it tried to write a little essay for me but you'll see down here that there's a couple of things that it pulls back. And it is getting better at giving you actual sources that exist, right? So, wait, like, where's the one that I was looking at earlier? So it actually is giving you some things. So if I actually look at um, some of these, they will come back as actual things that exist. But a lot of the time, especially like with this twenge one here, I looked at it and the actual study here, and it where it is in the uh, little essay it wrote, it doesn't actually talk about what this particular book or source is talking about. Okay, so at this point, this is where you're going to want to go look at some sources. Now, if you are looking at really good, credible sources on our library homepage here, um, under research topics, this is the research topics ideas tab, we do have down below a couple of places to read general background information. So Encyclopedia Britannica, Oxford Handbook, Sage Knowledge sometimes will be useful. I would also say that, especially for kind of more current events, political things that are happening in the world right now, the databases that we have listed down here, CQ Research Plus Archive, Viewpoint, Opposing Viewpoints, and Issues and Controversies, they will give you some really good overviews of what's going on with that. And they will also lead you to actual original sources that are coming here. So, for example, let me go into Opposing Viewpoints just because this is probably my favorite of the three. Um, if I look, there are going to be a bunch of like topics that it kind of pulls up. So like self-driving cars, and will highlight a few things like abortion or political corruption. It will also kind of give you some things like to think about. You can browse a number of issues as well. But if I was going to look at things related to like social media, let's see. And anything that's like highlighted and bolded like this means that there's like a specific page about this topic. So if I look at social media, it's actually going to bring back what an overview here. So it gives you like the first paragraph and a half, but then you can read more. And it will actually give you kind of some timeline and again some overviews of different areas to think about here. So it talks about some of the main ideas that you're seeing, functions, components, popularity, privacy and safety concerns, as well as, use of so it gives you a really good overview about what you're looking at. So I really do like opposing viewpoints, especially for kind of early undergraduate research papers, especially things that you'd see in like English 111, 112, even some of your kind of 100, 200 level classes. But again, once you get into those upper level classes, actually searching the library for things like systematic reviews or literature reviews are going to be useful when you're looking for these. Okay. Then once you kind of have read some background information, you still are settled on your topic, you might be a little bit flexible at this point and you're going to want to actually focus it. So in college and academia, a lot of your research is not necessarily I should say it's trying to be more specific, not like this general broad like what's everything that happened in World War II or what's everything that happened in social media, right? We actually need to be kind of specific about what we're talking about. And a couple of different ways to limit your topic are by a geographic area. So if you're looking at, just the United States or even just Michigan, if it's cultural, so is there a particular cultural group that is really um, heavily influenced by social media? So, African Americans versus white people. Or is there something like, is there a particular way that Asian Americans are using social media? Okay. Time frame with social media, right? The early days with Facebook and MySpace and everything, very different than what's going on now with things like TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, right? Maybe if you're looking at a specific discipline, so again, social media, are you looking at it from a technical background? Are you looking at it from a psychological effect? Are you looking at kind of the sociological or cultural aspect? How are people communicating with it, right? Linguistics, even like how are people talking on these? There's all these different ways that you can kind of focus it, okay? And even population group, right? So teenagers, adults. You could go into an ethnic background again, in addition to being cultural there. Um, so there's different ways you can go about this. There's always a caveat though that you can eventually get too specific. So if you are kind of really trying to narrow it down, but then you can't find a lot of things to back it up, maybe that's something that you could actually do original research in if you have the time, if that's what you're interested in. But for a lot of our early career undergraduate students, most of the time they kind of need to broaden it out a little bit. So maybe if you focus your geographic area down to how are teenagers in Michigan using social media, and you're really not finding a lot that specifically says Michigan, maybe we need to take that back out to the United States. Okay. So being flexible about your topic as you're beginning to research and kind of settling into it is a good idea. And how you can kind of frame this is actually by creating a research question, right? So in academic research, you're really not trying to find like the definite solution to a problem, or like you're not finding the one true way to do anything, okay? It's more observational, it's more conversational to say, hey, I did this study, here's what I found, and I think in it, and this approach worked in this instance, for example, right? And then another researcher will come in and say, hey, I like what you did here, but I took the data in a different way, and this actually worked better for me in this instance. Okay. Um, so some examples of how you can kind of form this research question, especially kind of early on in your undergraduate career, are like, what effects does social media have on mental health? Right? That's still really broad. Okay, so maybe we want to make that a little bit more specific. What effect does social media have on teenagers' mental health? Right, so we're putting in that population group there. Um, and then maybe we want to go even further down and how or what effect does Instagram, so a specific platform, have on teenage girls, so a more specific population, and a body image, a more specific aspect of mental health, right? So again, you can get more specific, but maybe if we're looking at this, maybe Instagram is not necessarily the best. Maybe we just take it out to social media, okay, and we keep the teenage girls and body image, okay. Um, and the other nice thing about this is that these questions kind of help you frame what your search term should be, right? So I'm talking about social media and teenagers and mental health, right? So when we're looking in the library and actually trying to search, which there's another webinar that I think I've got scheduled this semester. If not, I ran it last semester, that actually talks about search strategies and kind of developing key terms. We'll actually kind of go in and talk about how to pull in and create different search terms off of this research question. Okay, but you focus really on the nouns and noun phrases to use as your search terms, especially when it comes to searching in library databases. And then if you are in kind of upper level classes and in specific fields, especially healthcare, social work does this a lot. A lot of the social sciences will have these kind of things. There are specific kind of research question frameworks, and they have these lovely acronyms. But if you look at what these questions actually talk about, we'll just take spider for example. The sample, so who is being experimented on, how's it researched, how is it designed, how are you evaluating, and what's the research type, right? So what are the experiences of young parents in attendance at antenatal education classes, right? So your antenatal, so after birth education classes. So we're talking about kind of a mixed modes or even a qualitative research strategy here. So we're talking about how people are feeling, what their experiences are, not just like number of people that are there. Okay. So there's a few of these different ones. And again, especially if you're in nursing classes, you're going to definitely use PICO a lot, but there's a couple of other things and ways to kind of frame your research questions if, again, once you get into those upper levels. Okay. Then this is actually a really short webinar. I forgot exactly how short this is. But the other thing that is always a good idea when you're starting a research project, and even at the very beginning, is trying to stay organized. And we have a couple of research logs that are linked on our library page as well that kind of help you track your research questions, the kind of terms that you used, where you were searching, and like the sources that you find, not find, but find. And even things like using a citation management system like Zotero or EndNote for larger projects is going to be really helpful when you're creating your bibliography. So let me go and switch back to the library homepage here. And under research help, again, we were talking about the research topics page a little bit, but the research process guide is where a lot of this information is, including selecting a topic, finding background information, focusing a topic, listing those keywords. Those are all kind of embedded here. But we do, on this very first page, there's a stay organized option, and there's either a spreadsheet or a Word document form. They're both based in Google. I'm just going to open up, and what it will prompt you to do is to make a copy of this so that you can actually like have it for yourself. You can edit it all the time and change it however you want. But basically, it has a space for your research question. It has a space to kind of bring in some of those terms that are related. So if I was going to do social media in this initial one here, and then maybe I want to put in Instagram as a more specific one, and I'm not really focused on, say, Twitter, right? And then maybe down here, I want to use, body image or self-image or something, and I can kind of use these boxes to build on. And then down below, there's going to be a list of where I can actually, what my sources are. So what the citation was, where did I find it, and some notes about it. So how does it relate to my research? How do you want to use it in the project? And then any like paraphrases or quotes that you're kind of bringing out from this as well. Okay. So this is the Word doc version of it. We do have an Excel spreadsheet because sometimes it's easier if you're like sorting things, and especially for larger projects, sometimes it's easier to kind of stay organized that way, but it's really up to you. And again, these are just examples of what you could be using. Okay. So again, the research process guide is there. We have a ton of different video tutorials on our YouTube page. You can always ask a librarian on our website, and then my contact information is down here as well. So that's all I've got at the moment. So let me see, are there any questions that either Carrie or our other attendant, whose name I'm skipping out on here, have?
I've been sharing some links, but there haven't been any direct questions yet.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for watching this recorded webinar. Find upcoming webinars to register for at libcal.umflint.edu.